Jenny Sterling had been working the emergency room shifts for 14 years, which meant she'd seen every kind of medical crisis the universe could produce. Heart attacks during family dinners, construction accidents that defied physics, allergic reactions to substances that shouldn't exist, trauma cases that would have broken less experienced medical staff. But she'd never seen anything like what rolled through the doors of Mercy General Hospital at 0347 on a Tuesday morning. Multiple trauma, unknown species. Paramedic Rodriguez called out as the gurney crashed through the emergency room entrance. Found floating in a life pod 3 clicks from the station. Vitals are, well, we're not sure what normal vitals look like for this patient. Jenny looked down at the being on the gurney and felt her breath catch. The patient was roughly humanoid, but covered in what appeared to be crystalline scales that shifted through. Dim color patterns. Multiple limbs that might have been arms or legs. A face that was beautifully alien, but marked by obvious pain and injury. What do we know about the species? Dr. Valdez asked as they wheeled the patient into Trauma Bay 3. Nothing. Rodriguez replied, "This is a first contact situation. The life pod had translation protocols, but we couldn't get medical information before the patient lost consciousness." Jenny had worked enough alien medical cases to know the drill. When you didn't know the patient's physiology, you focused on universal trauma principles: stabilize bleeding, maintain oxygenation, prevent shock, and gather information as quickly as possible without causing additional harm. Scan results coming through, Technician Park announced from the imaging station. "Jenny, you need to see this." The holographic display showed anatomy unlike anything in Jenny's xenobiology training. Multiple cardiovascular systems that seemed to operate independently. Respiratory organs that appeared to filter different atmospheric components. A nervous system that was distributed throughout the body rather than centralized. And massive internal injuries that should have been fatal hours ago. How is this patient still alive? Dr. Valdez asked. Jenny studied the scans more carefully, noting patterns in the injury distribution. "Doctor, look at the damage sequencing. These injuries didn't all happen at once. They're progressive. The patient has been slowly dying for." She paused, calculating. Maybe weeks. Weeks? That's impossible. No known species can survive this level of systemic damage for more than hours. Jenny looked at the patient's crystalline scales, noting how they pulsed with faint color patterns even in unconsciousness. Maybe this species has different survival capabilities than we understand. But if the injuries are progressive, that means whatever caused them is still happening. Some kind of ongoing systemic failure? Or poison? Or disease? Or... Jenny trailed off as she noticed something in the scan data. "Doctor, can you enhance the neural activity mapping?" Dr. Valdez adjusted the display, revealing the patient's distributed nervous system in detail. What Jenny saw made her stomach clench. The nervous system is shutting down systematically, not from trauma, from isolation. Look at these neural pathway patterns. The holographic display showed a nervous system that was designed for connection, with neural structures that clearly expected constant interaction with similar systems. But the connection points were dark, inactive, slowly dying from lack of stimulation. This patient is literally dying of loneliness, Jenny realized. That's impossible. Doctor, look at the progression. The physical injuries are secondary symptoms. The primary cause of system failure is neurological isolation. This patient needs connection with others of their species, or their nervous system will continue to shut down, regardless of what medical treatment we provide. Jenny was still studying the neural patterns when the patient's color patterns suddenly intensified. The crystalline scales shifted from dim, pained flickers to brighter patterns that seemed almost like communication attempts. "She's trying to talk," Jenny said. "The patient is regaining consciousness?" "No," her consciousness never left. She's been aware this entire time, listening to everything we've said. Jenny moved closer to the patient, noting how the color patterns changed in response to her proximity. She understands us, but she can't respond because her neural systems are too damaged to support complex communication. Jenny reached out carefully and placed her hand on the patient's arm, avoiding the injured areas but making gentle contact with undamaged crystalline scales. The response was immediate color patterns that shifted to what Jenny somehow knew indicated gratitude and hope. "How did you know she would respond to touch?" Dr. Valdez asked. "I didn't know. But when patients can't communicate verbally, sometimes physical contact is the only way to let them know they're not alone." Jenny kept her hand in place, feeling warmth from the crystalline scales and watching the patient's color patterns stabilize into what looked like relief. "Jenny," Dr. Valdez said quietly, "the neural activity levels are improving. Your contact is actually stimulating damaged neural pathways." Jenny looked at the monitoring displays, seeing neural activity increase throughout the patient's distributed nervous system. Not dramatically, but enough to suggest that her touch was providing the kind of connection the patient's biology required. "Doctor, I think this species evolved for constant neural contact with others of their kind. Being alone for extended periods isn't just psychologically difficult, it's medically dangerous. But we don't have others of her species to provide that contact." Jenny watched the patient's color patterns, learning to read the subtle variations that seemed to indicate different emotional states. Pain, fear, hope, gratitude, all expressed through crystalline scale colors that were breathtakingly beautiful and heartbreakingly vulnerable. Maybe we don't need others of her species. Maybe we just need to provide consistent neural stimulation that her system can interpret as connection and support. How? Jenny thought about 14 years of emergency room experience, about patients who had recovered from impossible injuries because they felt cared for and supported, about the medical mystery of how hope and human connection could influence healing in ways that textbooks couldn't explain. "Doctor, I'd like to try something that's going to sound unscientific." At this point, Jenny, unscientific might be our best option. "I want to stay with her. Maintain physical contact, provide consistent communication attempts, treat her nervous system's need for connection as a medical requirement rather than a comfort measure." Dr. Valdez looked at the monitoring displays where neural activity levels were continuing to improve in response to Jenny's presence. "You're talking about round-the-clock patient contact. That's not sustainable with our staffing levels. Then get me volunteers. Other staff members who can provide the neural stimulation she needs. This isn't just about keeping one patient alive. This is about figuring out how to provide medical care for a species we've never encountered before." Jenny looked down at the patient, whose color patterns had shifted to what she was learning to recognize as trust. "Doctor, she's been alone and dying for weeks, maybe months. If we can figure out how to meet her species' neural contact requirements, we might be able to save her life and learn something that could help other members of her species. And if we can't?" Jenny watched the patient's color patterns dim slightly, responding to the uncertainty in the conversation. "Then we watch her die alone, and we learn nothing that could help the next patient like her." Dr. Valdez was quiet for a moment, studying the monitoring displays that showed clear correlation between Jenny's presence and improved patient stability. "Jenny, I'm authorizing your treatment approach, but I want full documentation of everything neural. Responses, color pattern variations, physical contact protocols, communication attempts. If this works, we'll be establishing medical protocols for an entirely new form of patient care." Jenny nodded, settling into the chair beside the patient's bed and maintaining gentle contact with the crystalline scales. "Understood, doctor. And doctor, could you contact the xenolinguistics department? If she's been trying to communicate through color patterns, we might be able to develop a translation system. As Dr. Valdez left to organize support staff and research resources, Jenny focused on the patient's color patterns, trying to learn the visual language of a species she'd never encountered. "I don't know your name," she said quietly, "but I'm Jenny. I'm going to stay with you until we figure out how to help you feel better." The patient's response was immediate color patterns that shifted to warm, golden hues that somehow conveyed gratitude more clearly than words ever could. Jenny Sterling, 14-year veteran of emergency medicine, began learning to communicate with a dying alien through touch, color, and the universal language of caring that transcended species barriers. By the third day, Trauma Bay 3 had been converted into something resembling a xenolinguistics laboratory crossed with intensive care unit. Dr. Miranda Cross, from the university's Alien Studies program, had set up translation computers designed to analyze the patient's color pattern communications. Nurse Martinez and technician Kim had volunteered for additional shifts to maintain the constant neural contact that seemed to be preventing further systemic deterioration. But most importantly, they were starting to understand who their patient was. "Her name is Lyric's Harmony of Stars," Dr. Cross explained as she updated the team on translation progress. "She's a young adult by her species standards, and she was traveling as a cultural ambassador when her transport ship was attacked by raiders." Jenny looked down at Lyrics, whose color patterns had grown significantly more complex and vibrant over the past 72 hours. The improvement in neural activity was remarkable, but they still hadn't solved the underlying medical crisis. "What about her species' medical requirements?" Dr. Valdez asked. "We've stabilized the neural isolation symptoms, but the progressive systemic failures are continuing." "That's where it gets complicated," Dr. Cross replied. "Lyrics' species, the Christeri, are collective beings, not just socially, but physiologically. They're designed to share biological functions within family groups." Jenny felt her stomach drop. "Share how?" "Neural connection allows them to distribute metabolic load, immune system function, even healing processes across multiple individuals." When Lyrics lost contact with her family group, she didn't just lose emotional support. She lost access to shared biological systems that her individual physiology can't sustain alone. "So she's dying because she's been cut off from her family's life support?" "Essentially, yes. Her species evolved for interdependence at the cellular level. Isolation isn't just traumatic, it's eventually fatal." Jenny looked at Lyrics' color patterns, noting how they had shifted to muted blues that she was learning indicated sadness or loss. "Does she understand what we're talking about?" Dr. Cross nodded. "Christeri are highly intelligent and empathic. She knows exactly what her medical situation means." Jenny placed her hand on Lyrics' arm, feeling the familiar warmth of contact that had become routine over the past 3 days. Lyrics' colors immediately brightened to the golden patterns that meant gratitude and affection. "Lyrics," Jenny said quietly, "we understand now why you're sick, and we're going to figure out how to help you." Lyrics' color patterns shifted to complex sequences that Dr. Cross translated. "She's asking if we've located her family group. She's been hoping that someone would find them and bring them here." Jenny felt her heart clench. "Dr. Cross, what's the likelihood that Lyrics' family survived the raider attack?" "Unknown. But even if they survived, the attack occurred in deep space 3 weeks ago. The chances of locating them are essentially zero," Dr. Valdez finished grimly. Jenny watched Lyrics' color patterns shift to the deep blues that indicated despair and resignation. She understood what the conversation meant, that her family was probably dead, that she was alone, and that her medical condition would continue to deteriorate without the biological support her species required. "There has to be another solution," Jenny said. "Some way to provide the biological support she needs without her actual family." Dr. Cross looked uncertain. "Jenny, The biological interdependence is species-specific. We can't just substitute human biological functions for crystalline ones. But we've already proven that human neural contact can stimulate her damaged pathways. What if we could expand that? Create artificial support for some of her biological requirements? How? Jenny had been thinking about this since learning about crystalline physiology. The same way we provide life support for any patient whose natural biological systems aren't functioning properly. We create external support systems that supplement what her body can't do alone. Jenny, that would require understanding crystalline biology at a level we simply don't possess. And even if we could create artificial support, the neural integration requirements could be met through enhanced human contact protocols. Jenny interrupted. Dr. Cross, you said crystalline share biological functions through neural connection. We've already established that human contact can stimulate her neural pathways. What if we trained multiple staff members to provide different types of support? Jenny was developing the idea as she spoke, thinking about the way medical teams already coordinated to provide comprehensive patient care. Respiratory support through one staff member, circulatory support through another, immune system stimulation through a third. Not replacing her biological functions, but providing external neural stimulation that helps her own systems function more effectively. Dr. Valdez looked intrigued. A human neural support network. It's unprecedented, but theoretically ... It could work, Dr. Cross finished. If we can train staff members to provide specific types of neural contact that stimulate different biological systems. Jenny looked at Lyrics, whose color patterns were shifting through what she was learning to recognize as cautious hope. What do you think, Lyrics? Are you willing to let us try to become your temporary family? The response was immediate and unmistakable, brilliant golden patterns that pulsed with gratitude and determination. Lyrics was ready to fight for her life, if humans were ready to help her do it. Dr. Valdez, Jenny said, I need volunteers for an experimental treatment protocol. People willing to learn xenobiology on the job and provide round-the-clock neural contact with a patient whose life depends on feeling connected and supported. How many volunteers? Jenny looked at the complexity of crystalline physiology displayed on the monitors around Trauma Bay 3. At least 6, probably more. And we'll need them for weeks, maybe months, until we can figure out a permanent solution. Or locate other crystalline who can provide proper biological support. Dr. Valdez was quiet for a moment, considering the implications of what Jenny was proposing. Jenny, you're talking about reorganizing our entire emergency care approach around the needs of one patient. I'm talking about saving a life using methods we've never tried before, and learning something that could revolutionize how we provide care for empathic species throughout the sector. Jenny squeezed Lyrics' hand gently, feeling the immediate response as her color patterns brightened with hope. Doctor, she's not just a patient, she's a teacher. If we can learn how to provide the care she needs, we'll be better equipped to help other beings whose medical requirements go beyond what our standard protocols can address. Dr. Valdez looked at the monitoring displays, which showed continued improvement in neural function despite ongoing physical deterioration. Jenny, organize your volunteers. We're going to attempt something that medical textbooks say is impossible. What's that? We're going to prove that human caring can substitute for alien biology when the need is great enough. Within 24 hours, Trauma Bay 3 had been transformed into the most unusual intensive care unit in medical history. 6 human staff members had volunteered for the experimental neural support protocol, each trained to provide specific types of contact that stimulated different aspects of crystalline physiology. Nurse Martinez specialized in respiratory support, gentle, rhythmic contact that helped Lyrics' breathing systems maintain proper function. Technician Kim focused on circulatory support, using touch techniques that stimulated blood flow and prevented the cardiovascular complications that had been developing from neural isolation that Dr. Santos from the pediatric department provided. What they called comfort contact, the kind of gentle, reassuring touch that promoted healing through psychological well-being. Even maintenance engineer Rodriguez had volunteered, discovering that his naturally steady hands were perfect for the precise neural contact that helped maintain Lyrix's motor function. "It's working," Dr. Valdez reported during the morning medical review. "Systemic deterioration has stopped, and we're seeing measurable improvement in multiple biological functions. The human neural support network is actually more effective than we projected." Jenny nodded, maintaining her position at Lyrix's bedside, where she'd spent most of the past 4 days. "She's teaching us how to help her. Her color patterns have become incredibly sophisticated. She can indicate exactly what type of support she needs and when. And her language comprehension?" Dr. Cross looked up from her translation computers. "Remarkable progress. Lyrix understands Galactic Standard at near-fluent levels, and she's learning to communicate complex concepts through color pattern sequences. We're developing the first comprehensive Christery human translation protocol." Jenny watched as Lyrix's colors shifted to the warm golden patterns that meant contentment and affection. The patient had become the emotional center of the entire emergency department. Staff members looked forward to their shifts in Trauma Bay 3, where providing neural support felt less like medical duty and more like caring for a beloved friend. "There's something else," Jenny said. "Lyrix has been asking about the other patients in the emergency department. She wants to help." "Help how?" "Christery neural capabilities apparently include empathic healing. She can sense emotional distress in other patients and provide comfort through her color communications. She wants to contribute to patient care instead of just receiving it." Dr. Valdez looked skeptical. "Jenny, she's critically ill. How could she provide support to other patients?" "The same way any patient provides support through companionship, understanding, and shared experience. But with Lyrix, it's enhanced by her species' natural empathic abilities." Jenny gestured to the Trauma Bay window, where other patients had begun gathering to watch Lyrix's color pattern communications. "Look how other patients respond to her presence. Children who are inconsolable after surgery become calm when they can see her colors. Adults dealing with pain or fear relax when she focuses her empathic attention on them." "You're suggesting we use our patient as a therapy resource for other patients?" "I'm suggesting we let her do what her species is naturally designed to do, provide emotional support and healing to those who need it. It's not exploitation if it's what she wants to do and what helps her own recovery process." Jenny looked down at Lyrix, whose colors were cycling through excited patterns as she followed the conversation. "What do you think, Lyrix? Would you like to help other patients while we help you?" The response was immediate and enthusiastic, brilliant. Color cascades that Dr. Cross translated as eager agreement and gratitude for being asked to contribute. "She says helping others is part of how her species maintains psychological health. Being useful, providing support, contributing to community well-being, these are medical requirements for Christery, not just social preferences." Jenny felt another piece of the puzzle click into place. So isolation wasn't just cutting her off from biological support, it was preventing her from fulfilling psychological needs that are essential for her species' mental health. "Which means," Dr. Valdez said slowly, "that our neural support network isn't just keeping her alive, it's providing the sense of purpose and community that she needs to want to live." Jenny nodded. "And if she can provide empathic support to other patients, she feels useful and connected instead of just dependent. It creates a reciprocal care system that benefits everyone involved." Over the next week, Trauma Bay 3 became the unofficial heart of Mercy General's patient care system. Lyrix, supported by her human neural network, provided empathic healing to patients throughout the emergency department. Children facing surgery found comfort in her gentle color communications. Adults dealing with chronic pain experienced relief through her empathic presence. Even staff members began stopping by during breaks to experience the calming influence of Christery emotional support. The patient satisfaction scores have improved dramatically, Dr. Valdez reported. But more importantly, we're seeing faster recovery times and reduced psychological trauma in patients who have received empathic support from Lyrics. She's not just a patient anymore, Jenny observed. She's become a healer. But it was the message that arrived during Jenny's shift on the 7th day that changed everything. "This is Captain Thorne of the merchant vessel Star Wanderer," the communication began. "We've received word that you're caring for a Christery patient. We have 3 Christery crew members aboard who have been searching for their missing family member. Request permission to dock for medical consultation." Jenny felt Lyrics' color patterns explode with brilliant, joyful hues as the translation computers conveyed the message's meaning. "They found her family," Jenny said, tears building in her eyes as she watched Lyrics' response. But alongside the joy, Jenny felt a complex mixture of emotions. After a week of providing round-the-clock care, the human staff had become genuinely attached to Lyrics. She wasn't just a patient, she had become family. "Jenny," Dr. Valdez said gently, "you know this means Lyrics will be leaving us." Jenny nodded, watching as Lyrics' colors shifted to patterns she'd never seen before, complex sequences that Dr. Cross translated as gratitude, love, and promises to remember. "She's thanking us," Dr. Cross reported. "But she's also saying she wants to maintain connection. She wants to establish a permanent communication link between her family and our medical team." Jenny looked at Lyrics questioningly. "You want to stay in touch?" The response was immediate and enthusiastic colors that pulsed with affection and determination. "She says we saved her life by proving that connection and caring can cross any barrier. She wants to help us learn how to provide that same care for other empathic species who might need medical treatment away from their families." Jenny felt her heart swell as she realized what Lyrics was offering. Not just gratitude for the care they'd provided, but partnership in developing medical protocols that could help other beings who found themselves isolated and dying from lack of connection. "Lyrics," Jenny said, "we would be honored to continue working with you." The color patterns that followed were the most beautiful Jenny had ever seen, cascading hues that seemed to celebrate not just survival, but the discovery that caring and cooperation could create healing that transcended species boundaries. The reunion between Lyrics and her family was unlike anything the medical staff had ever witnessed. 3 Christery beings entered Trauma Bay 3 with movements that seemed synchronized, their crystalline scales immediately shifting to communication patterns that were far more complex than anything Lyrics had been able to produce during her isolation. But what struck Jenny most was how the family's presence transformed Lyrics' condition. Within minutes of neural contact with her relatives, color patterns that had been dim and limited during her illness exploded into brilliant, complex sequences. Her physical healing accelerated visibly as biological functions that had been struggling were supplemented by her family's shared physiological support. "Remarkable," Dr. Valdez observed as monitoring displays showed Lyrics' system stabilizing at levels they hadn't seen since her arrival. "Her family's neural support is providing biological assistance that our medical technology couldn't replicate." Jenny maintained her position at Lyrics' bedside, noting how the patient's attention shifted between her family's complex communications and continued appreciation for the human care team. Even with her family present, Lyrics reached out regularly to maintain contact with Jenny and the other staff members who had become her support network. "She doesn't want to lose connection with us," Jenny realized. "Her family is providing the biological support she needs, but she's formed emotional attachments to the humans who cared for her during the crisis." Dr. Cross was working frantically to translate the complex family communications. But she paused to address Jenny's observation. Actually, that's consistent with Christory psychology. They form permanent neural bonds with beings who provide life-saving support. From Lyrix's perspective, you and the care team have become honorary family members. What does that mean, practically? It means she wants to maintain contact with you for the rest of her life. Neural bonds between Christory and other species are rare but extremely strong when they form. Jenny looked at Lyrix, whose colors were cycling through patterns that somehow conveyed deep affection, mixed with gratitude and a desire to continue the relationship they'd built. The feeling is mutual, Jenny said. But what about her family? How do they feel about humans becoming part of their neural network? Dr. Cross consulted her translation displays as Lyrix's family engaged in rapid color pattern conversations. They single quotes amazed. Christory family bonds usually form only with other Christory, but Lyrix's neural integration with humans has created something unprecedented. Her family is expressing gratitude and requesting formal recognition of the interspecies bonds that saved their daughter's life. Formal recognition? Jenny, I think they want to adopt you. Jenny stared at Dr. Cross. Adopt me? How does that work? According to Christory cultural traditions, beings who save family members through life sacrifice commitment become permanent family bonds. It's the highest honor their species can bestow. Jenny looked at Lyrix, whose color patterns were pulsing with hope and anticipation as she waited for Jenny's response to her family's proposal. What would that involve? Dr. Cross translated as Lyrix's family provided detailed explanations. Permanent neural connection protocols, regular communication maintenance, shared participation in family cultural events, and reciprocal life support commitment. Essentially, you would become Lyrix's human sister, with all the responsibilities and privileges that entails in Christory society. Jenny felt overwhelmed by the magnitude of what was being offered. A permanent connection to an alien family, responsibilities she didn't understand, participation in cultural traditions she'd never experienced. But she also felt Lyrix's hope through their neural connection and the deep affection that had grown between them during the medical crisis. What about the rest of the care team? Jenny asked. Everyone contributed to saving Lyrix's life. More rapid color pattern conversations between Lyrix and her family, with Dr. Cross providing running translation. They want to extend formal family recognition to all humans who provided neural support. You would all become part of their extended family network. Jenny looked around Trauma Bay 3, where Nurse Martinez, Technician Kim, Dr. Santos, and Engineer Rodriguez were all watching, with expressions of amazement and uncertainty. What do you think? Jenny asked her colleagues. Are you ready to become part of an alien family? Will it help other patients like Lyrix? Nurse Martinez asked practically. Dr. Cross translated the question, then provided the family's response. They say that human Christory family bonds would create medical protocols that could help any isolated Christory who needs emergency care. You would become cultural ambassadors as well as honorary family members. Technician Kim nodded slowly. So we'd be helping not just Lyrix, but potentially other Christory who might find themselves in similar situations. That's correct. And according to Lyrix's family, the neural bonding protocols would also enhance human empathic abilities, potentially making all of you better at providing care for empathic species. Jenny looked at Lyrix, whose color patterns were cycling through hopeful anticipation as she waited for the human's decision. Lyrix, Jenny said, we would be honored to become your family. The explosion of joyful color patterns that followed was visible throughout the entire emergency department. Lyrix's scales shifted through brilliant hues that seemed to celebrate not just personal happiness, but the creation of something unprecedented, an interspecies family bond that would bridge cultures, and transform medical care for empathic beings. Dr. Cross, Jenny said, as Lyrix's family began the neural bonding protocols. What exactly did we just agree to? You just became the first humans in galactic history to be formally adopted by Christory family bonds. You're also about to become the most qualified interspecies empathic care specialists in the known galaxy. Jenny felt the neural connection with Lyrix deepening as the formal bonding process began, expanding her awareness to include not just Lyrix's needs, but the emotional states and well-being of the entire Christory family unit. This is incredible, she said, feeling her empathic sensitivity enhance dramatically. I can sense everyone's emotional and physical condition directly. And we can sense yours, Lyrix said, speaking aloud for the first time since her arrival, her voice carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate directly with Jenny's nervous system. Sister Jenny, thank you for showing us that family can be chosen as well as born. 1 year later, Jenny Sterling stood before the Galactic Medical Council, presenting the results of what had become known as the Christory Protocol, the first comprehensive interspecies empathic care system in medical history. The integration of human empathic sensitivity with Christory neural bonding capabilities has produced medical outcomes that exceed projections for both species. Jenny reported to the assembled delegates from 47 different worlds. But more importantly, it has demonstrated that medical care can transcend species barriers when built on genuine connection and mutual support. The presentation screen showed data from 12 different medical facilities where human Christory family bonds had been established to provide care for isolated empathic species patients. Recovery rates had improved dramatically, but the greater success was in the relationships that had formed permanent family bonds that continued long after medical crises were resolved. Nurse Sterling, inquired Ambassador Veltar of the Andromedian Medical Collective, how has the neural bonding affected human medical capabilities? The enhanced empathic sensitivity allows us to detect patient distress and medical needs that traditional diagnostic tools miss. We can sense the emotional components of illness that affect healing rates, identify psychological trauma that complicates physical treatment, and provide comfort that accelerates recovery for all empathic species. Jenny gestured to a section of the presentation that showed treatment outcomes for non-Christory patients. The skills we developed caring for Lyrix have made us better at caring for all empathic beings. Human Christory family bonds are now providing medical consultation for 17 different species throughout the sector. And the Christory perspective on these developments? Lyrix herself stepped forward to address the council, her color patterns translating through advanced systems developed specifically for interspecies medical communication. Human family bonds have enhanced our species' ability to provide empathic healing beyond anything we achieved through traditional family structures. Alone, Sister Jenny and her colleagues have taught us that caring transcends biological compatibility. Jenny felt the familiar warmth of neural connection with Lyrix, now enhanced by similar bonds with 12 other Christory family members, and supported by permanent communication links with Christory communities throughout the galaxy. The most important lesson, Jenny continued, is that effective medical care for empathic species requires treating emotional and psychological needs as medical requirements rather than comfort measures. When patients feel genuinely cared for and connected, their biological systems respond in ways that purely technical treatment cannot achieve. The medical council session concluded with approval for expansion of the Christory protocol to medical facilities throughout the galactic community. But for Jenny, the real victory was more personal. Back at Mercy General Hospital, Trauma Bay 3 had been permanently converted into the Interspecies Empathic Care Unit, where human Christory family bonds provided medical treatment for isolated, empathic beings from dozens of different worlds. The unit had a waiting list of patients whose families had requested specifically that their relatives receive care from the human medical team that had proven caring could overcome any barrier. "Sister Jenny," Lyric said as they concluded their daily rounds, her color patterns warm with affection and professional satisfaction. "The new patient in Bay 7 is responding well to Nurse Martinez's respiratory support techniques." Jenny nodded, checking the displays that showed another successful application of human empathic care enhanced by crystalline neural bonding. "And the Zephyrian patient in Bay 4? Technician Kim's circulatory support protocols are perfect for her species' healing requirements. She should be ready for discharge tomorrow." Jenny looked around the unit where human medical staff and Christery family members worked together to provide care that neither species could offer alone. It was exactly the kind of collaborative medicine she'd always believed was possible treatment that addressed not just biological needs, but emotional and psychological requirements that were essential for true healing. "Lyrics, when you first arrived, did you ever imagine this is what would develop?" Lyrics's color patterns shifted through complex sequences that conveyed multiple layers of meaning. "Sister Jenny, I came here dying and alone. You gave me life, family, purpose, and the chance to help others heal the way you helped me heal. This is better than anything I could have imagined." Jenny Sterling, Director of Interspecies Empathic Medicine and honorary member of the Christery Harmony of Stars family, continued her rounds in the medical unit that had become a model for empathic care throughout the galaxy. It was exactly the kind of impossible healing that reminded her why she'd become a nurse in the first place, to prove that caring, connection, and genuine human compassion could overcome any barrier to helping those who needed help.